Tennis Australia must be the most woke sporting organisation in the country, and that's saying something because it's a pretty crowded field. Tennis boss Craig Tiley announced last week that he wants biological men to be able to compete in elite women's tennis events. Tennis Australia was trying to influence the International Tennis Federation and Women's Tennis Association to make that opportunity available. It's an idea brimming with possibilities. When Novak Djokovic's body becomes too tired to compete in the grueling men's tour, Nicole Djokovic can enter the ladies' field and add 100 Grand Slam titles to Novak's 22. That's if Rochelle Nadal doesn't beat her to it. Tiley told the Sydney Morning Herald excitedly, "We are an organisation that believes in absolutely in inclusivity, in diversity, in equality. So any decision made will need to be aligned with our core values." Now, I know what you're thinking. What about believing in biology? What about the value of fairness? The most amazing part of this story is that Tiley told the Sydney Morning Herald there are no known transgender tennis players currently seeking to compete at the elite level. So it's not like there's a woman trapped in the wrong tennis player's body, desperate for his shot at glory on the women's tour. No, it seems Tennis Australia are a bunch of woke-tards trapped in a sports administrator body, desperate for their shot at virtue signalling on the world stage. The ITF and WTA's current policies permit trans athletes to play depending on testosterone levels. In other words, they've reduced men to a hormone that can be manipulated. Or is it women? Whatever, adjust your testosterone levels and you can be who you want. You're just a chemistry set after all. What a great day it will be at the Australian Open when a man wins both the Men's Open and Women's Open titles. So much inclusion, so much diversity, so much equity, so much for women's sport. The first time a biological man faced off against a woman in tennis was back in 1973. Bobby Riggs, aged 55, took on Margaret Court, who, at age 30, was on her way to finishing as the world's #1 female player for the 7th straight year. Well, Riggs smashed Court 6-2, 6-1. Then the middle-aged hustler took on Billie Jean King. That match was billed as the Battle of the Sexes and was played before a crowd of 30,000 people. The 29-year-old King went down 6-4, 6-3, 6-3 to the 55-year-old bloke. In 1992, Jimmy Connors took on Martina Navratilova, beating her 7-5, 6-2. Now, before you get too excited at the close first set, Connors was 35 years old and he was only allowed one serve, while Navratilova was permitted two. In addition, Connors had to hit into the singles court, while Navratilova was allowed to hit into the doubles court of her opponent. But yeah, aside from the game being completely rigged against old man Connors, it was all inclusion, diversity and equity. Connors later admitted he won $1 million after placing a bet that he would beat Navratilova in straight sets and not lose more than 8 games. But the truest test between a male and female tennis player came at the Australian Open in 1988, after the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena, boasted they could beat any man ranked outside the top 200. The challenge was taken up by a 30-year-old German who was ranked 203 in the world at the time. He took on the sisters one after the other on court 12, having earlier that day played a round of golf and had a couple of shandies, as you do when preparing for an important women's match as a biological male. He beat Serena 6-1 and then he beat Venus 6-2. He later told journalists he had played like a man ranked 600 to keep it interesting. Now, Craig Tiley, who clearly missed the match, should leave women's tennis for women to keep it interesting.